Why is it that those called to the highest purposes often face the most devastating falls? Why is it that those anointed for greatness, chosen by heaven, are sometimes the ones destroyed in silence, long before the world even knows their name? Lust, it's loud, it's obvious. It's the struggle we recognize. But there are battles more dangerous than lust. Silent assassins that creep into the lives of chosen ones, unseen, undetected, until the collapse is too great to reverse. Today we pull back the curtain. Today we expose the real threats, the ones that destroy your destiny without ever making a sound. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us, "We do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places." Your enemy is strategic. He doesn't just tempt you with what you can see. He infects what you cannot feel. He plants destruction in the cracks of your soul, cracks you never knew were there. This is not about fear. This is about warfare. This is about survival. Attack 1: Isolation, the silent assassin. In the beginning, God said something profound. It is not good for man to be alone. He wasn't just talking about marriage. He was revealing a spiritual truth about human design itself. We were built for connection. We were built for community. But chosen ones often walk alone, not by accident, but by calling, set apart, different, misunderstood. And while isolation can sometimes protect you from the noise of the world, there's a darker side. Isolation can also become the deadliest battlefield, because battles fought in secret are the battles most often lost. In isolation, there is no mirror, no one to challenge you, no one to correct the small compromises before they grow into strongholds. The mind, untethered from community, begins to deceive itself. It justifies, it rationalizes, it turns small cracks into acceptable flaws until the structure collapses. Even Elijah, the mighty prophet who called down fire from heaven, after one threat from Jezebel, ran into the wilderness alone. Under the broom tree, isolated, exhausted, overwhelmed, Elijah did something dangerous. He began to believe lies. "I am the only one left, and now they want to kill me too." 1 Kings 19:10. It wasn't true. God had reserved 7,000 who had not bowed to Baal. But isolation made Elijah blind to the truth. The silent assassin of isolation isn't loneliness, it's deception. When you're alone too long, you start to believe your feelings are facts. You start to think your pain is your identity. You start to believe you're the only one struggling, that no one understands, and worst of all, that even God has forgotten you. If you are a chosen one walking a lonely road, hear this. Isolation may sharpen your calling for a time, but it was never meant to be your permanent home. Even Jesus, after fasting 40 days in the wilderness, returned to community, to his disciples, to the people he was called to serve. Even the Son of God did not walk his path alone. Why should you? Isolation sharpens the knife, but if you stay too long, it will cut you where you cannot heal. Find your people, seek your tribe, trust someone with your weaknesses before they turn into your downfall. Attack 2: Pride and anointing, the poisoned crown. There's a moment, after the battle has been won, after the prayers have been answered, after the platform is given, where a deadly whisper begins. A whisper that says, "Look at what you have accomplished. Look at who you have become. You are different. You are special. You are better." Pride does not always announce itself with arrogance. For the chosen ones, pride often wears the disguise of spiritual maturity. It says, "I am beyond falling." It says, "Others struggle, but not me." And in that moment, the moment the chosen forget their dependence on God, the fall begins. Proverbs 16:18 warns us, "Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall." Lucifer himself was the first to fall because of this poisoned crown. Once the most beautiful, most anointed, most radiant of all created beings, his downfall was not lust, it was pride. "I will ascend. I will rise above the Most High." Isaiah 14:13-14. Pride transformed brilliance into rebellion. And today it is pride, not temptation alone, that silently destroys many of the gifted. It begins so quietly. After success, after applause, after promotion, chosen ones stop kneeling. They stop trembling before the presence that once undid them. They stop listening for correction. And without even realizing it, the crown becomes poisoned. It no longer rests upon a servant's heart. It sits heavy on the head of someone who believes they no longer need to bow. David, the man after God's own heart, won many victories. But it was in the season of prosperity, when kings went off to war, that David stayed behind and saw Bathsheba. One small decision, one moment of entitlement. I don't have to go to battle, I've earned my rest. That was the crack pride needed. And the collapse that followed cost David more than he could ever imagine. The enemy is patient. He waits not just for your weakness, he waits for your pride. Because pride blinds you to your weakness. A chosen one in pride is like a king who forgets his armor because he believes no arrow can pierce him. If you are walking in your anointing, if you are standing on the victories God has given you, remember this: the higher you rise, the lower you must bow. The greater your influence, the deeper your humility must run. The brighter your light, the greater your need to hide yourself in the shadow of His wings. Do not let your anointing become your downfall. Wear your crown, not with pride, but with the trembling humility of a servant who knows every victory belongs to the King, not the soldier. Attack 3: bitterness. The rotting heart. Pain is inevitable. When you are chosen, when you are anointed, when you walk against the flow of the world, betrayal, rejection, misunderstanding will come. It's not a question of if, it's a question of how you respond. There is a wound so deep it doesn't bleed on the surface. It hides, it festers, it rots the heart from the inside out. It is called bitterness. Bitterness is not loud, it is not obvious. Bitterness grows in secret. Watered by memories, fed by offenses, protected by pride. Bitterness is dangerous because it feels justified. They hurt me, they betrayed me, they never saw who I really was, they deserved my anger. And maybe they did, but here's the terrible truth. Bitterness doesn't destroy them. It destroys you. Hebrews 12:15 warns us, "See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many." A bitter root. It starts small, invisible, but eventually it pushes through the surface, poisoning relationships, distorting perception, cutting you off from the very grace you need to heal. Cain, the firstborn of creation, had a chance to be celebrated. But when God accepted Abel's offering over his own, jealousy twisted into rage. God warned Cain, "Sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Genesis 4:7. Cain ignored the warning. He fed the wound. He watered the anger. And in time, bitterness blossomed into murder. His destiny was lost, not because he wasn't gifted, but because he couldn't master his own heart. Bitterness is a slow death. You think you're protecting yourself, but you're only poisoning your future. You think you're holding someone else accountable, but you're chaining yourself to your past. Some of you have carried bitterness so long it feels like part of your personality now. You say, "I'm just cautious. I just don't trust easily. I just know better now." But behind the walls you built to protect your heart lies the very thing the enemy wanted: a heart hardened against love, against hope, against healing. Bitterness doesn't just stay inside you, it seeps out in your words, in your decisions, in the way you see others, and even in the way you see yourself. If you have been hurt, if you have been betrayed, if you have been rejected, you are not alone. Even Jesus was betrayed by a kiss. Even Jesus was abandoned by his closest friends. Yet even on the cross, he said, "Father, forgive them." Forgiveness is not pretending it didn't hurt. Forgiveness is choosing to be free. Forgiveness is tearing out the bitter root before it chokes the life out of your calling. Bitterness is a rot. But healing is still possible. Rip out the root. Open the wound. Let the healer do what only he can do. Because you cannot walk into your future still chained to your past. You have seen the battlefield now. It's not just lust, it's not just temptation, it's the silent assassins. Isolation, pride, bitterness. These are the real enemies. These are the battles fought deep beneath the surface, where no one is clapping, where no one is watching, where no one can fight for you. You can win this war, you can defeat the silent killers, you can rise from the ashes stronger than you have ever been. But you must choose, every day. You must choose to stay connected. You must choose humility over pride. You must choose forgiveness over bitterness. You must choose intimacy with God over cold activity. You must choose to believe what He says about you, even when everything else tries to tell you otherwise.